Hi Liz,
Hi.
how you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Did you have any trouble getting connected?
Nope.
Excellent. So we're just going to wait for everyone else to join.
Okay.
How'd the week go for you?
Good. I did have a question about the Chapter 6 exam, though.
Sure.
The end of it, the last four questions, said to draw diagrams, but the only thing you could do in the boxes was type.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay.
I can go in and refigure those. Let me do that right now. You said chapter 6?
Yeah, Chapter 6, the exam. It was just the last four questions. They wanted you to draw. I'm assuming it was like the diagrams that they were looking for, that were in the actual chapter for like the ethical problems. I just
Okay.
didn't know how to draw in the boxes. I tried on a couple of them to type it in, but it was not working very well. I assumed it wasn't what they were going for either, so I gave up by the last one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it would be the diagrams in the book. I won't count those. So anyone who wasn't able to answer those, I'll just go in and adjust the scores. That's not a
Okay.
problem.
Okay.
All right, so there. Where do you live again?
I live in Wyndham.
Okay. How far is that from Lewiston?
Uh, I'm not positive. I think probably 30 to 40 minutes.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to get all of you into an office setting for shadowing sometime.
Oh, okay.
All right, so.
Yeah, I just checked on Google Maps. It's about 35 minutes from where I live.
Okay. So go ahead and give yourself, let's see. Did you get any others wrong?
On the
6?
chapter 6?
Yeah.
I'm honestly not sure. That one said pending. That was the only one that didn't get graded. I think it was probably because of those last 4 questions. It said pending manual.
Well, on 56 you put ramifications and it should have been liability.
Okay.
On 62, you just spelled it wrong. I'll change that grade. Let's see. Okay, so I see what you were trying to do.
Yeah, the last one I just gave up. I couldn't.
That's okay. Hey, at least you tried.
Yeah, I tried.
All right, how about a 94?
Okay, sounds good. I'll write that down. Thank you.
Okay. I wonder if the others had trouble getting connected because no one else is on. It wouldn't be the first time it was just me and one other person. All right. I don't think there was anyone else. Okay, so unless someone else gives me an email or shoots me something about chapter 6, I think we're good for now. Chapter 1, you got a 60. Was I supposed to look at chapter 1?
No, I don't. Chapter 1 was only 10 questions, and they were all ones that I had to fill out, and you had already reset it for me once. I don't know what was going on there. I just seem to have a hard time with that one. Chapter 2, though, I did have a list of questions that I wanted you to look at for me.
Okay, well, while we're waiting for people, I can do that now.
Okay.
Hold on, let me finish with 1.
Okay.
Yeah, on chapter 1, you really just misspelled 1, and then you just put the wrong term for what they were looking for.
Okay.
So for chapter 1, you now have... Hi, Diane.
Hi.
All right. So Liz, what's the first number you wanted me to look at?
68.
Okay, that one's all set. Next one.
71.
Okay, and 74.
I had written down 75, but I might have been wrong.
Nope, 75. Okay.
76.
Yep. 77.
77 and 78.
All right, so for chapter 2, oh, 90.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Diane, did you have any exams you wanted me to look at?
Well, I emailed you on over the weekend on chapter 6, the last 4 questions. They want you to draw.
Filling it in.
Oh, okay. So I didn't finish the test. I have to go back in and just finish it then.
Okay, so just go back in and finish it, and when you're done, let me know. I'll take a look at it. If I need to make some adjustments, I'll do that.
Because I didn't know how to. As I say, I didn't know how to draw on there.
That's fine. Any others?
Nope, that was it. Well, I haven't finished that test, so I don't really know, but.
Okay. All right. So I don't know if other people are having an issue.
I lost my Jabber. I had to download it all over again.
How'd that happen?
I don't know. It was just gone.
Okay.
So that's why I was late getting on.
All right. So let's go ahead and turn to page 96 in your textbook. And no one has received their study guide yet, right?
No.
All right, so chapter 7. Chapter 7 is all about medical law. So, with medical law, on page 96, Diane, would you read me the scenario that they start the chapter with, please?
Sure. Barbara Johnson is the new office manager for 2 neurologists in an urban area. Recently, she was subpoenaed to appear in court with medical records to testify about a patient. This particular patient was referred to one of the physicians in the clinic, Dr. Rebecca Patrick. Dr. Patrick saw the patient several years ago, and the patient has brought a medical professional liability case against a surgeon in another city. Barbara is considered the custodian of the medical records and will take them to court and answer questions about the information in them. One of Barbara's first priorities is to make sure the office is operating in compliance with legal and regulations that affect the facility. She is knowledgeable about the requirements of the Occupational Safety Health Administration as well as other legal issues. She is familiar with legal issues and has testified as custodian of records several times during her tenure as an office manager. 2 of the employees, Barbara's supervisors, Samantha and Linda, are newly graduated from medical assisting school and are anxious to learn more about the statutes and the laws that affect physicians' office. Barbara is more than happy to share what she has learned with them. She's excited about her new job and eager to get be a great success. What is that?
I'm not sure. Very good. So welcome, Scarborough. I can see Scarborough is connected. Can Scarborough hear me? Can Scarborough hear me? Hi, Terry.
Terry?
I can't hear you, Terry. Nope, can't hear you. Hi, Aunt. Is she getting help? Okay. Okay. Whatever you just pushed or pressed, open the connection and then shut it again. Okay. So we'll wait till they come back. All right. So what does litigious mean, Liz? Litigious. What does litigious mean in our vocabulary?
It means prone to engage in lawsuits.
Yes, it means prone to engage in lawsuits. What is bailiff? Diane.
An officer of the U.S. court who usually serves as a messenger or usher and who keeps order at the request of the judge.
Okay, and just so you know, your picture is frozen, but I can hear you. All right. Implied consent means presumed consent, such as when a patient offers an arm for a phlebotomy procedure. So implied consent, when we go into a practice and we see the physician for the first time, we meet the physician, we agree that we want to, see one another, be treated by the physician. We give them our consent. Okay? So let's turn the page to 98 and talk about the classifications of law. There was an act that was passed by Congress regarding the different classifications of law. There are actually jurisprudence. Jurisprudence is the science and philosophy of law. Precedence. The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the United States. It takes precedence over federal statutes, court opinions, and state constitutions. We have, when a law is enacted at the federal level, it must be passed by Congress. When that is done, it is called an act. And local governments create and enact ordinances. And much of our law is based on previous judicial and jury decisions, which are called precedents. So, a statute is enacted by state legislature, an ordinance is created and enacted by your local government, and precedents are usually jury decisions. Let's talk about criminal law versus civil law, all right, on page 99 in your textbook. Your criminal law governs violations that are punishable as offenses against the state or government. Criminal law, I should say civil law, is concerned with acts that are not criminal, but they involve other individuals and relationships and groups. Your criminal law is punishable as offenses by state and federal government. Your misdemeanor means that those are minor crimes. You might just have a fine that's involved. A felony is a major crime, and treason is the most serious crime. Underneath your civil law, it's not usually criminal in nature. It usually is affecting and done by individuals, organizations, and government agencies. Your tort law, there are 4 elements that must be established with your tort law. Who can tell me what those 4 elements are? What about you, Liz?
The plaintiff must establish that the defendant was under a legal duty to act, and then must demonstrate that the defendant breached the duty, and the plaintiff must prove that the breach of legal duty proximately caused some injury or damage, and the plaintiff must prove damages or injury.
Great. Very good. So what we also will see is medical professional liability or medical malpractice will fall underneath the tort law. All right. Liability insurance and third-party insurance. Your physicians need to carry professional liability insurance. This is a type of third-party to help them guard from liability costs. Hello, Scarborough. Can you hear me, Scarborough? Okay. Medical assistants also can invest in liability insurance. It just depends on your job. Where are you working? Do you think you need it? Your contract and administrative law. Contract is on page 99 still. Contract is an agreement creating obligation. It doesn't have to be written. You can have oral contracts. With the administrative law, this involves regulations. Hi, Joan. Hi, Terry. I think they froze. Okay, with your administrative law, this involves regulations that are set forth by governmental agencies. Let's turn the page to 100. All right, let's talk about medical professional liability lawsuits. This is where you might have a miscommunication between the patient and the physician. It falls underneath the tort law. It also plays into the patient trust, because if the patient trusts you or there becomes mistrust, You want to be very careful. So let's talk about critical thinking application 7-1. Barbara works for Dr. Rebecca Patrick, who saw the patient bringing the lawsuit against the surgeon as a referral patient. Does Dr. Patrick have a contract with the patient based on a physician-patient relationship? Why or why not? What do you think, Liz?
Yeah, I think she does. If she saw that doctor, then down below it, the 3 bullet points, that the physician establishes their availability and the patient accepted the appointment, and then the physician examined her, so they have a contract.
Right. Hi, Ange. I can't hear you. Okay, heard something. Still can't hear you. Can you hear me? I can see you. Can you hear me? Okay. So, critical thinking application 7-2. If a patient does not pay for the services rendered by the physician, does this negate the physician-patient contract? What do you think, Diane? You have to unmute your microphone.
To do that. I think that he does have the right to terminate that contract if the patient doesn't pay him.
They still have to attempt to try and collect 3 times. But yes. How might Barbara, Samantha, and Linda ensure that patients understand that they are expected to follow the advice of the physician? What do you think, Liz?
Just make sure that they have all the information available to them and make sure that they know that they should follow their doctor's advice.
Right. The doctor and the staff should be sharing the same message. So consistency in messages. What do we consider as valid contracts? Well, a valid contract would be a manifestation of assent. So giving permission to the physician. Involving legal subject matter, that would be a contract. Legal capacity of both parties, making sure both are of sound mind, and consideration. Bear with me one moment. All right, on page 101, let's talk about breach of contract. This is basically the failure to perform all duties. You want to make sure that you give a clear amount and not charge more than that amount. The statute of frauds. This is the statute was adopted in England in 1677. This is for reducing perjured testimony. You also have evidence in writing as well as contracts in writing for the money that needs to be paid. And you usually have more than 1 year to perform duties, meaning you can have that time to be collecting those monies. Preliminaries of litigation. We have the municipal court level, which is your local level. What are some of the things that you might see in the municipal courts, Diane?
They deal with ordinance violations, city and town ordinances.
Yes. That's fine. Then we have justice of the peace courts, your county courts, district courts, appellate courts, U.S. district courts, your state supreme courts, and your U.S. Supreme Courts. The litigation progress. The litigation progress helps. What you have to do for litigation is to prepare for court, and to do that, make sure that you have everything pulled together, all of your documentation. Make sure if you have an attorney helping you that he's helped to prepare the defense. Any interrogatories, make sure the physician has been asked complete questions. Depositions over on page 102. This is usually a testimony from a party or witness to the litigation. And subpoenas is a document issued by a court that requires a person to be in court by a specific time. And then discovery. This is usually the pretrial disclosure of pertinent facts or documentation. So on critical thinking application 7-6, Samantha wonders what she should do if she ever finds information during a medical professional malpractice case that might harm her employer's defense. What advice would you offer? And would it be considered an obligation or a choice to report the employer for wrongdoing? What do you think, Liz?
I think that if the court is asking for that information, then it's not a choice. She has to give them the information.
Pretty much. She should really give the information. I mean, you're trying to protect your provider, but also at the same time, you don't want anything to come back on you. All right. Let's see. Preparing witnesses and testifying. Bottom right-hand corner of page 102. Make sure you are on time. Dress conservatively. This is showing respect. Always review the documents. Answer questions aloud. Repeat confusing questions. Make sure you don't lie because there's a penalty of perjury. And don't show any combative or hostile attitude. The burden of proof. Who does the burden of proof fall on, Diane?
I believe that falls on the plaintiff.
Right. So in a criminal case, the burden of proof is actually on the prosecution, which must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So civil cases must be proven by a preponderance of evidence. This means that the greater weight of the evidence must point to the defendant or respondent. So basically, look at your scales of justice there. The goddess of Justitia. She was the Roman goddess of justice. Over on 104, arbitration. Hello? We have arbitration. This is usually an alternative to a trial, and this is to help avoid court battles. It's usually an informal hearing, and but it's legally binding. It is a contract with voluntary signing. Hold on one moment. That might be class. All right, one moment while we have another student who's trying to log in, and that's Scarborough still not able to get through. And you're not able to get in? Are you trying to call me? Are you trying to call me? Okay. Um, hello?
Yes, we are. Thank you, sir. Okay, bye.
Okay,
There
so
we
we
go.
got Jackie.
Jeez.
Okay, so Ange, can you hear me? Okay, so you can hear me. All right. So, all right. Ange, if you can at least hear me, let's just get through the class, and then I can send you the link. Okay? And maybe I'll just have to set up a meeting with Joan so that we can figure out why her microphone's not working. Okay, but you can hear me? Okay, that's what matters. Good. Okay, so we are on page 104 in our textbook. And we are just at the part of arbitration. Okay, so we're talking about, we just finished up with arbitration being an alternative. Okay, someone needs to mute. Okay. Arbitration is an alternative to trial in which a third party is chosen to hear evidence and make a decision because of the individual's familiarity with or knowledge of the law or the issues involved. Arbitration is common in modern business life. Okay, let's talk about medical professional liability and negligence. With medical professional liability, this is governed by the law of torts. You will see that with the law of torts, this is usually where a patient is injured as a result of physician's negligence. So a patient might actually initiate a malpractice lawsuit to recover some damages. All right. Medical professional liability is commonly called that, medical malpractice. The term medical professional liability encompasses all possible civil liability. So to understand medical malpractice, the term negligence first must be understood. Usually negligence in general implies inattention to one's duty or business. With a malpractice lawsuit, it basically has resulted in the trust in the physician has waned or lacked or lost. Basically, lack of patient and physician relationship. The classifications of negligence, okay? You might have 1 to 3, maybe 4 types of general classifications over on page 105. You have malfeasance, which is woefully wrongful and unlawful act. You might have misfeasance, which is improper performance of a lawful act. You might have nonfeasance, failure to perform, and then the possible fourth one would be scope of practice. So, critical thinking application 7-8. Linda is curious as to whether a physician is guilty of medical professional liability if he or she makes a mistake in diagnosing a patient. When might this be considered malpractice, and when might it not be considered malpractice? What do you think, Jackie?
I think it should, because he should know what he's doing. He is a doctor, so he should know what he's doing, and I think he is responsible for it.
Yes. Okay. Let's talk about the 4 Ds of negligence, starting over on the right-hand column. The 4 Ds of negligence. The first one is duty. What does duty consist of, Diane? Unmute your microphone.
Exists when the physician-patient relationship has been established. The patient has sought the assistance of the physician, and the physician has knowingly undertaken to provide the needed medical service.
Okay. What is dereliction, Liz?
Dereliction is failure to perform a duty.
Okay. What is direct cause, Jackie?
Proof that must exist that the patient was harmed directly because of the patient's physician's actions, or failure to act and that could harm and otherwise have occurred.
All right. And then we have damages. The patient must prove that a loss or harm has resulted from the physician's actions. Okay? So if all four of these elements exist, the patient may obtain a judgment against the physician. Some types of damages, nominal damages are small awards that usually small token compensation. Punitive damages, these are designed to punish the party who committed the wrong. Compensatory, these are designed to compensate for any actual damages. Your general damages include compensation for pain and suffering, and then special damages are awarded for injuries. Standard of care, this pertains to the medical assistant, where you must be distinguished from the medical assistant's scope of practice. So you want to make sure you perform all duties exceptionally and only the duties for which you have been trained. The physician must use reasonable care and diligence, use best judgment in treatment, and exercise reasonable skill and care that's commonly held and exercised by other similar practitioners. Bless you. All right, consent. Right-hand column on page 106. Consent, we have implied consent, which is sufficient for a low-risk procedure. Then we have informed consent, where you're required to probably verify your identity, discuss the treatment options, and even sign a consent form. So an informed consent would be required for more of your complex procedures. Now, when we are giving consent to medical procedures, you want to make sure that the person is mentally competent. It is invalid if the person is unauthorized or if it's maintained by fraud. If it is implied consent in emergency, that is okay. The Good Samaritan law, who can tell me about the Good Samaritan law? Liz?
It was enacted so that if somebody renders emergency care, it's harder for somebody to bring a lawsuit against them as long as they meant well.
Right. Okay. And then for minors, consent must be obtained from the parent, the guardian, or guardian ad litem, except in emergencies that require treatment. Statute of limitations over on page 108. Your statute of limitations is a period after which a lawsuit cannot be filed. It also will vary from state to state by litigation type. Your confidentiality. Tell me about confidentiality, Jackie, in your own words.
Somebody tells you something and you want to keep it just between you and the other person and not say it to anybody else.
Why is this important in healthcare?
Because nobody should know any information about the patient except for the doctor and the patient. It should be kept just with them too.
Right. Okay. All right. Actually, if you were to breach confidentiality, that is grounds for immediate dismissal. You want to make sure that you use strict care when you're dealing with patient records and discussing information about patients. Let's talk about law in medical practice. Okay, with law in medical practice, we're going to start off with legal disclosure. As a medical assistant, you might be responsible to report births and deaths, any type of suspicious deaths, any type of sexually transmitted diseases, child abuse, any other reportable diseases, okay? This is what we call legal disclosure. The Patient Self-Determination Act. Diane, tell me what that is. Unmute.
In my own word, I did. In my own words, or do you want me to read the paragraph?
In your own words.
That's where you sign. It's kind of, well, they call it advanced directive, but it's like a living will. You decide what you would like happen to you if something were to happen, that you could make those decisions.
Right. Right. Basically, your healthcare facility needs to make sure that all the patients receive information about how to do a living will, if they want a durable power of attorney, or use advanced directives. That's what that's all about. Your patient bill of rights, there's actually 8 sections, and they have 3 goals. So the 3 goals, the first one is to strengthen consumer confidence by making sure that your healthcare system is fair and responsive. All right, and then the second one is to make sure we reaffirm the importance of a strong relationship between the physician and the patient. And the third one, reaffirming critical consumer role in their own care. So on the bottom of page 109 over to 110, they talk about the patient's bill of rights, information disclosure, choice of providers and plans, access to emergency services, participation in the treatment decisions, respect and non-discrimination, confidentiality of health information, complaints and appeals, and consumer responsibilities. So, with the Affordable Care Act of 2010, when was this enacted? What year, Liz?
It was signed into law in March of 2010.
Yes. Yes, and what is the reform supposed to do?
It's supposed to restrict the annual limits and bans lifetime limits on healthcare benefits, and it prohibits discrimination against children with pre-existing conditions.
Yep.
It makes preventable services so that they can't require co-payments.
Yeah. So basically, it's really starting to hold your health insurance companies accountable by lowering the healthcare costs, guaranteeing more choice, enhancing the quality of the care. They had additional benefits that actually went into effect in 2011, and then there are even more benefits that went into effect in 2014. All right. Let's talk about the Controlled Substances Act. This is basically a drug enforcement administration that revolves around regulating the use and abuse. Your regulations are based on drug schedules. So the first schedule is that no accepted medical use. The second is high abuse potential, severe risk of dependency. 3, lower abuse potential than 1 and 2. 4, even lower abuse potential. And 5, lower abuse potential but still warrants control. All right, over on page 112, the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act. We also know it as the donor card, organ donor. This governs the donations of bodies and portions of bodies. It provides uniform legislation across the states, and you will see down below that that is a uniform donor card. Most of us have it on our licenses that we agree to be an organ donor. HIPAA, HIPAA. It is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. The major goals around HIPAA were to limit administrative costs in healthcare and privacy issues. basically help to prevent fraud and abuse and provide security and confidentiality uh, guarantees for patients. There are two provisions you see in HIPAA. The first one is the insurance reform, and the second one is administration simplification. What does the insurance reform deal with, Diane?
It includes includes several provisions to protect individuals and their insured dependents if they change jobs or lose a job.
Okay. And what does Title II deal with, Jackie?
Administrative simplifications, standardizing the exchange of the information one way or the other, promotes computers to computer transactions, just makes everything easier from when you're going from one doctor to the other. They do it all electronically.
Very good. So the benefits with HIPAA is that it will lower administrative costs. You'll see an increase of data accuracy, also an increase in consumer and patient satisfaction while reducing the revenue cycle time and improving financial management. OSHA on page 113, the Occupational Safety and Health Act and the Bloodborne Pathogen Standard. The Bloodborne Pathogen Standard provides regulations to protect against transmission of infectious bloodborne pathogens. There's a general duty clause which it says no law can cover every single situation that may arise in the course of daily living. You have emergency preparedness and fire prevention plan, and it tells you right there in the paragraph what the plan must include, what the procedures must cover. You then have exposure control plan over on page 114. This involves waste management, your hazardous waste materials communication, your radiation safety plan. It also has record-keeping regulations. When we talk about needle stick safety and prevention over on page 115, injuries will occur especially during needle disposal process. The safety device selection must involve all employees, so your needle stick and sharps injury log must be kept in the medical facility, where all needle stick and sharp injuries must be reported and documented. So critical thinking application 7-13. Barbara needs input about the needle safety devices used in the facility. Should she call a meeting of the entire office, or should just specific employees be present? If so, discuss who should have input into these decisions. What do you think, Liz?
She should call a meeting of all the employees.
Everyone should be involved. Absolutely. Now, over to 116, OSHA training requirements. Your OSHA training requirements. All employees with risk of occupational exposure must receive training prior to their start of work and annually just to update it. So you'll see there, training must include the following, and it lists out for you what the training must include. Hepatitis B vaccination, it must be offered at no cost. Your material data sheets, they provide vital information about the product or chemical that is being used in the facility. Also, it will explain the proper use of the product and appropriate action for when spills occur. Your clinical laboratory improvement amendments. This is also known as CLIA, C-L-I-A. These set regulations of minimum standards for laboratory practice and quality. You will also notice that CLIA is not a governmental agency. It is a law. It is OSHA is both law and an agency. Over on page 117, Americans with Disabilities Act. The intent for this is to eliminate discrimination against individuals who have disabilities. It also will address areas where a person might experience discrimination. In your physician's office, your individuals should be able to enter and exit the facility without difficulty. Over on the right-hand column of page 118, the High-Tech Act of 2009. High-Tech stands for Health Information Technology for Economic and Clinical Health. This was actually signed into law in February of 2009 to promote meaningful use of health information technology. Your physicians who do not adopt electronic health records will be penalized with Medicare payments, and when there are data breach notification requirements, in other words, if there is a data breach, everyone is required to notify either their security compliance officer or keep a log of it. Let's see. What else? All right. So, try not to be skeptical in your position. Always try to prevent claims in your work environment. Make sure you practice patience because regulations change all the time, and you will have to have a lot of patience, especially if you go into a practice that is trying to implement electronic health records. Stay calm and try to always answer questions as best as you can. With the legal and ethical issues, remember that you're liable for negligence. The physicians are responsible for employees. They're also responsible for partners. Your injured patients, they sue the physicians even if the assistant is at fault. Because why? Because you work for the provider. Your government regulations were established by the FDA and the DEA. You can find an exhaustive listing of all of the government legislation and regulation through internet research. The person who is actually charged with the duty must be able to interpret lengthy legalese and determine the exact tasks and precautions that are required by the facility for all of these requirements. So, when they say we must follow OSHA guidelines, well, what does that mean? Go on the internet, pull up OSHA guidelines, and understand what they mean. If you don't understand what they mean, call OSHA and say, can someone help me with this? And they will be more than happy to have someone help you. Any questions so far, ladies, on Chapter 7? Okay. And when you're done, you can call me before you leave, okay? Okay. All right, so let's move right on to Chapter 8, Computer Concepts. Now, we all know how to use a computer. Page 124. Okay, what is a bookmark, Liz? On 125, what's a bookmark?
A command in a browser that marks the internet protocol, the IP address of a website so that it can be saved and recalled quickly without retyping the entire address.
Yes. Okay, what is a flash drive? Jackie.
A small portable device that can carry 2 to 8 gigabytes or more of information that plugs into the USB port, and it's also called the thumb drive, jump drive, or portable drive.
Okay. And what is a DSL, Diane? Unmute.
No, it's a digital subscriber line, a high-speed, sophisticated modulation scheme that operates over existing copper telephone wire systems, often referred to as the last mile technologies, because DSL is used for connections from a telephone switching station to a home or office and not between switching stations.
Okay. So, we all know how to turn a computer on, hopefully. We all know that there are different type of mice, and I don't mean the mice that, invade our home. I'm talking about, you know, a mouse like this. This is a trackball mouse, okay? You don't find these anymore. I have probably one of the last four on in the state of Maine, maybe. Those are my favorite kind. You also have the wireless mice. You have whatever comes with your computer. You might go out and buy yourself one, but and then you have the CPU, which is the tower, and you have the monitors, and you have speakers, and you have external hard drives, and as we talked about, the flash drive or jump drive. We know that we're all hooked up by a modem. We're either we're hardwired, or we are wireless. So what are some of the ways that a computer is effective in a medical office? Liz?
It makes having patient records on hand, it makes them more easy to access, and it makes less paper in the office and less filing. It does the work for you.
Yeah. Okay. So we know that computers have been around for a long time. So the basic functions of a computer, I remember starting our children on the old Macintosh. And we used it back when they were little just to have games for them so that they could learn to spell and count and, all of that good stuff. And then because of the work that I do, it just made more sense to do a regular computer, what we call an IBM or Dell, Toshiba, HP, a regular computer versus a Mac computer. And why? Because the operating system is more compatible with what you see out in the workforce. Not many places have Macs in their business for their daily operations. So a computer can perform word processing, accounting, data sets, so databases, can perform drafting and engineering needs. It can simply be a tool for searching the internet. Um, so I just explained the parts of a computer, the three elements that differentiate microprocessors. You have that, right here in your book. And then the different types of printers, you have laser printers, dot matrix printers. I don't know if there's many of those out there anymore, but those are the Oki data dot matrix, where you put the paper on these little wheels that have pins in them, kind of, and the papers have a hole in them, and you have to fit the paper on the holes so that as you turn the knobs, it turns the paper up just so. That's dating myself. And then just your regular inkjet printers, all-in-one fax copy machine scanners, that type of stuff. What's the importance of a motherboard? What can you tell me? Why is a motherboard important, Liz?
It's the main circuit board for the computer, to which other devices can be attached.
Yes. And how about peripheral devices? Give me a few Tell me what peripheral devices are, Jackie.
I would say like maybe the printer, or sometimes they have wheels for the games or something that you could add on that you would need the motherboard to be able to plug into. If you have, a regular or not a laptop.
Okay, and what are several types of file formats, Diane?
Uh, a J, the JPG pegs,
Yep, the
uh,
JPEG.
dot, TXT, text,
Yep,
RF, RTF,
yep.
BMP.
Okay, good. How about what is the concept of computer networking, Liz?
It's a network or group of multiple computer systems that are linked together.
Yep, so
And there's a bunch of different types of them.
Local area network, you can have a metropolitan area network, a wide area network, a home area, campus area. It just depends where you are, okay? But networking all of the computers to communicate with a central server or with each other. Why is it important for security, Diane?
Because in a medical office you put a lot of personal information in there, and that needs to be secure.
We're on page 135, security. And then, so the importance of computers basically is the medical software. We might have reduced prices. It saves us time, and we want to make sure we understand the full capabilities of our computer. Okay. Also in the software, I don't know how many of you have actually seen it, but within software programs, you have dialog boxes that pop up to explain different things that you're doing or give you information. Some of the computer basics also are supposed to help us reduce error, lessen the repetitive tasks that we do. So, all of those forms that we used to fill out by hand, we can create a template within a program and fill that form out once, save it as a master, and be able to fill it in next time we need it with it already partially done. Also, having a computer helps to increase some of our production speed. It helps us to save some time. If you can learn your computer, if you can go in and you can learn all of the ins and outs of the computer and the software and the basics, you really are looking at being able to save time in your job. So wherever you go, try to make it a priority or be motivated to learn the program, to learn the computers, to know what Word does, what can you do with Excel, what can you do in PowerPoint, okay? Because you might end up in a job where you will have to analyze data, or you might need to create different templates of forms to utilize them in the practice software. Knowing how to do all of this stuff really makes you more of an asset to your employer, okay? Whether it's healthcare or anywhere else. I am actually on my 5th software program, an electronic health records program that I am learning to use for a provider. So when I go into a provider's office, if I don't know their program, I learn their program. I do all of their webinars, their trainings that they have with their program so that I can become knowledgeable in their program to help them utilize it better. Because as a biller, coder, administrative staff person, I know the ins and outs of what needs to happen from that front desk to the time the patient leaves. So the patient walks in, we get the information we need, they go back, they see the provider does his thing, and then the biller and coder does their thing, and the patient comes out and leaves. Okay, that's a full cycle. So knowing how that is supposed to look within the software helps the provider, helps the staff to be more efficient. So, so I am on my fifth software right now, EHR program that is cloud-based, and we just implemented it over the past 30 days. We're still working out the bugs, but for me, it's actually very fascinating to get that figured out, to how can this work to give me the information I need as the biller coder to get the electronic health records incentive for this provider come the new year. Because that's a whole nother topic that we will probably talk about at some point, is the EHR incentive for providers. They all have to be electronically, signed up for electronic health records this year. And if they see Medicare patients, if they don't sign up for electronic health records, they will start to be penalized by 2016 in their Medicare payments. So over a period of time, they will receive monies back as an incentive for going electronic. But there's a lot of bells and whistles and hoops to jump through to accomplish this, and it's not a matter of putting the software and the hardware together and making it work. It's really time involved to research, watch the training, ask questions. I know how it works on these other 4 systems, but okay, where do I find it here on this system? I need this to work like this. Where do I find it? And then how do I help the doctor to make sure he's getting the notes that he needs to put in, the demographics, the height, weight, blood pressure, allergies, medications, all of that stuff. So the more you know, the more willing you are to learn, the better type of asset you are for your employer. And this is administrative. This is not just clinical and billing and coding. This is administrative. So knowing the programs and learning everything you can is really important. Also, information recall. The computers help us with information recall. It is supposed to help reduce paperwork. What do I mean by help reduce? Well, if you are in the middle of transitioning from paper to electronic, you are in the process of a hybrid system. You are using a hybrid system because you're not completely paper, you're not completely electronic, you're somewhere in the middle. And a computer allows creativity. If you learn the programs, it helps to allow creativity. When you're processing information, there's an input where you process things, then there's an output, you have storage. And then on the storage, where do you store stuff? You have CDs, and you have flash drives, you have external drives, okay? What are the different types of computers, okay? The different types of computers, you might have a laptop, you might have a notebook, you might have a tablet, okay? On page 128, you might have a PDA, a personal digital assistant. I don't see many of those around anymore. I think I have one sitting in a drawer somewhere. And parts of the computer, the microprocessor, okay? The microprocessor is differentiated by its bandwidth, its clock speed, its instruction set. We talked about some of the other parts, types of printers, we talked about those. We talked about the inside of the computer again. Now, when you're adding programs to a computer, let's see. Adding a program to a computer, page 132. All right, let's do Critical Thinking Application 8-5. How might a digital camera be of use to a physician in the medical practice? And what care should be taken when the camera is used with a patient? What do you think, Liz?
Well, it can be used for before and after pictures or for documenting, but you should always be sure to have consent before you take
Have
pictures.
consent, make sure you're backing it up, make sure you're deleting, all of that good stuff. When we're adding a program to a computer, we might have a CD-ROM with installation instructions. In your Windows environment, you would go to your control panel, do add and remove programs, and then make sure you restart after installation. We talked about the different file formats. We talked about the computer networking. Now servers. All right. Your computer that manages the shared network resources are considered servers. You have a print server, you have a file server, and a database server. Okay? Your file servers are used for file storage, and your database servers are used to process your database queries. When we talk about the internet, we are talking about connecting to millions of computers. Guess what? We wouldn't be able to do what we're doing tonight without our computers. We could do it probably with the video camera, but guess what? We're using the video camera and the computer. So we're using a peripheral device and our computer. Chat programs are just that. They were chat programs where you didn't really see the person on the other end. You were just typing back and forth. E-commerce. What would be considered e-commerce, Jackie?
I would say that would probably be e-commerce. Probably like the AT&T or maybe Sprint or something, depending on what you're having for the server.
Well, e-commerce is where we buy things. E-commerce. Electronic commerce. So where we buy things. So yes, AT&T or Sprint or Yahoo or Google or e-commerce. Where you get your website, host your website, that type of stuff. Okay? It allows us to shop on the internet from most anywhere. When we have a host, the host actually controls the access. So the host would be the website like I was just talking about. Your internet service providers, they provide you the internet access. You can have a unique IP address, which is a TCP and IP. You might also have a uniform resource locator, which helps to transmit your messages. And then there's a hypertext transfer protocol. Guess what? You won't need to know any of that probably on the CMAA, but if you're a computer person and you like to learn that type of stuff, you might just get into that stuff. Your browsers, page 134. Your browsers, this is where we bookmark things, we create favorites. Your browsers help you to locate and display your web pages. You can have multimedia, you can have graphics and have text all on the same page. You also download cookies, which you probably don't realize. And then you have search engines. Your search engines are Google, Mozilla, Internet Explorer, Yahoo, AOL, Bing. There's probably a whole bunch more I don't even know. When we have phones that are performing computer functions, these are your mobile phones. These are your smartphones. You know, the iPhone, the flip phones. These are all things that can help you review and edit documents if you have one. Your PDAs also have some of the same capabilities as smartphones. They might allow more mobility. It just depends. Your computer as a coworker. Well, the best thing about a computer as a coworker is that it can't talk back to you. It can't give you a dirty look, or it just doesn't talk at all. But it helps you to process your claims electronically. It shows you the errors are noticed immediately, the patient information in the charges. It helps you to build monthly statements. It houses the database and the software. It organizes all of the patient information, and it helps to schedule all of the appointments and the meetings. Basically, your computer is a virtual assistant. It can do automatic call routing sometimes if you set it up that way or have that capability. It can make pre-recorded calls to patients if you have the software to do so. The practice management programs, the EHRs that are out there now, actually can send text messages or emails depending on how you set it up. Okay, sometimes it's an additional service that you pay for, but it can be done. With your computer security on page 135, your patients are entitled to the utmost confidentiality with respect to their medical records and the release of information. Make sure you're keeping confidentiality of all of your patients. There is encryption, and the encryption is the translation of the data into a code that is not readily understood by most users. It is the most effective way to achieve data security. It also helps to avoid hackers and crackers. With firewalls, your firewalls are often used to prevent individuals from accessing private networks. So you want to frequently change passwords, and it shows activity logs of your users. With HIPAA regulations and computers, all right, HIPAA regulations, this basically limits who can look at and receive the patient health information. It talks about patient care and treatment coordination over on page 136. Physician payment, all right, sharing it with involved family, receiving care in clean facilities, and protecting the public health. So HIPAA regulations and computers are just as important as HIPAA regulations and paper charts. Your electronic signatures. There are programs that actually offer both a standalone and something that's part of the computer. You might have seen at the bank they have this little pad type. It's called an e-pad, and you actually sign on it and you sign your signature. Okay, that is a type of standalone product that you can sign and your signature goes into the computer. With all of these touch screens, you can now, if they set it up correctly, sign your name right on the touch screen and the name goes into the computer. Passwords and PINs are usually set up too as well. You can sign patients in with a password or a PIN. Ergonomics. You want to make sure you have an ergonomically set up environment. You want to make sure that you are sitting at a 90-degree angle. your feet on the floor, your knees at a 90-degree angle, your arms at a 90-degree angle when they're reaching the keyboard. You don't want to be reaching up. You don't want to be too low. You want the monitor directly in front of you, probably about an inch lower than your um, eye level. Usually, wherever you go, there should be someone who helps you to set up your environment ergonomically. Make sure you have safe furniture to repeat repetitive motion injuries and prevent eye strain. All right, so closing comments. Computers are workers just as well as we are. Basically, we're working as a team. Make sure you read your instruction manual and instruction manuals. Find new ways to perform certain tasks, and computers can help you save time. Just learn the programs. It can also help to educate your patients. So be patient, especially when you're using check-in programs. With the electronic health record programs that I am using right now, in the offices that I work in, there is a check-in screen, a sign-in screen, and the patient enters a PIN and they fill out a diagram and some questions so that the doctor knows what is they're coming in for. This is what is called the subjective part of the note. We will get into notes and stuff like that later on, but the subjective is always, what is the reason for your visit today? So the patient will come in and say, I have low back pain. All right, so Mary, if you have low back pain, is it dull, aching, throbbing, stinging, numbing, tingling? List one or all of those things. Then what is your level of discomfort? Is it intermittent, occasional, frequent? I'm drawing a blank. But usually it's only about 5 questions. What makes it better? What makes it worse? And then do you have anything else you'd like to tell the patient today? Tell the doctor today. So the patient is able to, in their own words, within the confines of this program, be able to say to the doctor, okay, I'm coming in for this, 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 and this is where it hurts, this is what's going on. So the patient goes into the room with the doctor reads the note and says, okay, and they do a little bit of an exam and go from there. That would be your subjective part of your program. Any questions on computer concepts? What do you think, ladies?
No. No.
No?
No.
Okay. For those of you who have not taken exam 6, their last 4 questions are asking you to draw something. So you're not going to be able to draw anything. Just leave them blank and tell me when you finished it, and I'll go in and I will adjust your grades, okay?
I finished that before we started the class. Yes. No, I finished it before we started the class.
Okay.
Just so you know, that one's all done.
Okay, very good. All right. So I'm actually going to move forward and talk about Chapter 9. Is that okay?
Sure.
It's telephone techniques, which means that we're going to throw off our chapters, but that's okay. And sometimes that will happen because the chapters are either short. All right?
Mm-hmm.
This means you have that much more work to do after. Okay. So, telephone techniques. Jackie, would you read the scenario for me and the telephone techniques, please?
Sure. Ashlyn McDowell, a recent graduate of the Medical Assistance Program, has begun her first position as a receptionist in an obstetrician's office. Ashlyn's lifelong goal has been to work as an obstetrician and is determined to perform at the best of her abilities. However, she has never held a job in a professional office. She knows that she needs to practice all the skills she learned in school to be an effective receptionist. Ashlyn works for Dr. Stella Frank, who is a customer service oriented and wants her patients to feel cared for and special. She insists that all her concerns be taken seriously. Ashlyn is anxious to build trust with her patients and offer them help and with problems they encounter that fall in her realm of responsibility. Dr. Frank recently purchased computer software that allows Ashlyn to record phone messages on the computer, and these messages are automatically routed both in an inbox for the physician as well as entry in the patient's medical records. Although the system is new to everyone in the office, Ashlyn is determined to become proficient at its use as quickly as possible. She knows that she must speak clearly and distinctively and must be apt to follow-up skills. She plans to dress professionally each day so that she can project the right images to the patients with whom she comes in contact. Ashlyn will strive to be the type of employee who is willing to learn, ability to adapt, and a heart full of compassion for her patients. She is a team player who sincerely wants to cooperate with all other staff members who might need her help. Dr. Frank is pleased that she has found such an eager person to add to her staff and will assist and guide Ashlyn as she learns how to make the patients feel like a part of the clinic family. Ashlyn's self-esteem has increased because she feels she is making a great contribution to the healthcare.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so over on page 140. The source of most of our calls in an office are going to be established patients, new patients, report of treatment results or emergencies, physician referrals, laboratory results, pharmacies, and patients for prescription refills. Can you think of anything else? Have I missed anything? Okay. All right. So active listening. Active listening. I think we all have trouble with this one. Okay? You want to quiet the mind to absorb what the speaker is saying. You want to focus on the conversation and look at the speaker's eyes. Do not interrupt. Allow the speaker to express a complete thought. Repeat your interpretation of what has been said using the speaker's words when possible. Ask whether the interpretation is correct. Respond to the speaker. Don't look at a watch or clock or answer a cell phone when listening. Remain on the speaker's subject. Respect differing opinions and be empathetic. So in a practice setting, when we're dealing with patients, this is really important, because how often do you see people continually distracted? And they give you their attention and they look away. They give you their attention, they look away. They give you their attention and they look away. Right? So they're not really practicing active listening. Okay. I want you to practice active listening over the next week. So if you have to copy that, write it down or something, I want you to practice it this week and come back next week and tell me how hard it was. Okay? Practice it with anybody, family, coworkers, friends. Okay, pleasing telephone voice. A pleasing telephone voice. When we talk about pleasing telephone voice, what are some of the things that come to mind, Jackie?
Speaking slowly so people can understand you. Maybe speaking a little bit louder if they're hard hearing. And speaking clearly so they can understand what you're saying.
Okay. And do we want to have a certain tone or inflection, Liz?
Yeah, try not to be monotone. Try to use inflection while you're talking.
Yes. And how about, should we be rude?
No.
No. And make sure you avoid medical jargon and use correct grammar as much as possible. Okay? So, a telephone headset is definitely a good thing. When you're using a headset, the mouthpiece should be 1 inch from your lips and directly in front of your teeth. Make sure you speak directly into the headset and have the same distance as a handset if you're speaking on a handset. So critical thinking application 9-1. Ashlyn has a tendency to speak a little fast in her normal conversations. How will she need to adjust as she is answering phones in the medical office? She also is a friendly person and enjoys talking on the phone. What precautions should she take so that this does not become an issue on the job? What do you think, Diane?
I think she needs to learn to slow down even in her normal conversations so that she can make that a habit. I'm not sure what precautions she should take to not talk so much on the phone.
Okay, what do you think, Liz?
Just take care to make sure that even though she does enjoy talking on the phone, that while she's at work, it remains professional.
Right. Have to be time management. Use time management. Okay. So, you want to maintain confidentiality over on the bottom right-hand corner of 141. Let's turn the page. Use discretion when you're mentioning names, symptoms, or other information, and never use a speakerphone. You can use a speakerphone if you have them on hold and there's no one else around and you're on hold. But once they pick up, make sure you take the speaker off and you are talking on the phone or the headset. So, always think ahead. Actually, let's do critical thinking application. Ashlyn hears an employee speaking on the intercom to a patient. How should she handle this situation? What do you think, Jackie?
I just use this for an example. I would say to the person, Tina, it's on the speakerphone. Other patients can hear it. If you don't mind, you should really shut it off and speak to the patient that way.
Very good. So let's think ahead. When we think ahead, before a phone call, make sure you have all of the necessary information ready. Have your pen and paper ready to take your notes. Make sure you write down your list of questions or your goals for the conversation, and make sure you list the frequently called numbers so that you save time when you're making those phone calls. When the phone rings, answer promptly, usually by the third ring. If you have multiple lines, place the first call on hold long enough to ask the second caller if you can put them on hold. If it's an emergency, let others on hold know that they may have to wait or be called back. Do not multitask while on a phone call. Take the phone, okay? You want to identify your facility. Now you're going to ask your provider how they want you to answer the phone, because they might say the practice name may be Pineland Rehab and Wellness, Dr. Smith's office, but does the doctor want you to say Dr. Smith's office or Pineland Rehab and Wellness? You know, if it's too long, you get tongue-tied. Ask how they want you to answer it. Just choose the greeting and practice it. Make sure you identify the caller, so if the caller does not identify themselves, ask who it is and write down their name so that you don't forget. Try to use the caller's name at least 3 times during the conversation, and handle the callers who will not identify themselves according to policy. Remember, we talked early on about having a standard operating procedure manual. There should be a policy in there about your phone calls. So, critical thinking application. Most offices dictate how the phone is to be answered. What should Ashlyn do if she is very uncomfortable with the way she is asked to answer the phone? What do you think, Diane?
She might talk to her supervisor and see if there's a different way that she could answer the phone, or practice to answer the phone the way they want it done.
Yes. All right. Screening your incoming calls on page 143 and 144. Make sure you learn the physician's preferences for receiving calls on or returning them later. Explain that the physician will return calls as soon as possible. Provide an approximate time frame for when a caller can expect to hear back. Ask a phone number for the caller, and record the messages accurately and document calls. What is one of my pet peeves is scrap paper or sticky notes. Okay? There is a notepad. Use the notepad or use the telephone message book. Get a phone number and a name. Don't guess. Repeat it back to the person so that when you give me the message and I call, I actually get through to the number. I don't get, you have dialed an incorrect number. That bothers me. Repeat back to the person who called their name and their number and the message so that when you give me the message, I get a nice, clear message. All right, minimize the wait time. How should we minimize the wait time? Well, we want to keep the callers on hold as short a time as possible. Once per minute, you should check back in with the patient holding for the physician, or you can ask them to offer to have the call returned rather than wait on hold, and make sure you're always thanking the caller for waiting. When you transfer a call on the right-hand side of 144, make sure you ask permission first when you're placing the caller on hold or to transfer the call. Identify the caller to the person who is receiving the transferred call. If the person is unavailable, ask the caller if they wish to leave a message or leave a voice message. And make sure you know how to direct the calls to appropriate staff members. When you take a telephone message on the right-hand side of 145, if you turn over to 146, it actually shows you a phone message form. Make sure, as I just said, name of the call of the recipient, name of the caller, all contact numbers, what's the reason for the call, what's the action to be taken, the date and time of the call, and the initial of the person taking the call. So what type of action would you take on a telephone call? Message procedure incomplete until necessary action is taken. What does that mean?
You didn't get all the information. Maybe a wrong phone number, maybe the wrong name.
Right. So we want to add a note to that to carry it over to the next day if necessary to make sure we clean up that message. We also want to note patients' attitudes if they're significant to help the physician when returning the call. Okay? When you're ending a call, end the call promptly. So thank the caller, close the conversation with a form of goodbye, and allow the caller to hang up first. When we are retaining records of telephone messages, you should have a policy in place just like everything else. How long should we keep them? Your electronic system should send directly to the medical record, and you should keep handwritten message pads for a period of the statute of limitations, so usually about 7 years. Giving directions, okay? Every office should have a clear set of directions written out so that you can read them to the caller if requested. You can also prepare directions from various points in the area, place a map on the office website. Do not refer to internet mapping site. You can point them to your website and say, follow these directions. Some other incoming calls, inquires about bills. Patient might be calling about their bill or to obtain a ledger. If it's a routine, ask if you can help answer the question. You might want to help arrange a payment plan, different types of things. Inquire about fees. Give estimates of fees before patient sees the physician. Make sure you have the schedule of fees available. They might want to inquire who is the participating provider. They might request assistance with their insurance. Radiology and lab reports. You might need to have urgent reports faxed or relay reports to the physician. Progress reports. A physician might ask how a patient is doing to check on them in a few days. Routine reports from the hospitals. Your hospitals and other sources might call to report a patient's progress. Some office administration matters. Keep in mind, not all calls are concerning patients. It might be the accountant, the auditor, it might be office supplies. You want to handle the calls and refer them to the appropriate person. Any requests for referrals can be handled without consulting the physician if a list of the practitioner is provided. If the insurance plan requires a written referral, the physician might need to handle it. Most of your physicians require an office visit to discuss their referral. Make sure you document all the referrals in the medical record. Your prescription refills, your pharmacies will call to obtain approval for a prescription refill. Also, check with the physician and call back, or some of the medications require a written prescription, so they might get a phone call from the pharmacy. Patients who are refusing to discuss symptoms, they might only want to talk to the physician over the phone. So if the patient refuses, suggest that they make an appointment to talk to the doctor. Unsatisfactory progress reports on page 149. Do not give medical advice to patients. You want to make detailed progress notes about the patient being unhappy or having unsatisfactory progress. You want to show the notes to the physician and then follow up with the patient based on your physician's instructions. Any requests for test results. The patient might call for test results, or the physician might see the results and give you permission to share the results with the patient. Only provide abnormal test results only if authorized. Only if authorized. And refer any questions to the physician. You want to make sure you schedule an appointment with the physician for any type of abnormal results. Identify the patient properly before giving the results, and also keep in mind your patient must give written permission before any information can be given to a third-party caller. All right, complaints about care or fees, top of page 149. You might have someone who has issues with their bill, so you want to be able to explain the charges. If the patient is angry, offer to pull a chart. Make sure to reassure the patient you want help, that you want to help. Personal calls to the physician or to staff, handle them all accordingly, okay? Specialty calls, telephone services, and equipment. You just want to take the action required, refer it to who needs to handle it, and go from there. Your aggressive callers on page 150, your aggressive callers insist that they receive whatever action they feel necessary. They want it immediately. Make sure you treat them with calm, poised attitude. Do not let aggression force you to take inappropriate action. Make sure you explain to the caller that they can expect a response from the office and when. Make sure you also follow up on the appropriate action that was taken. Any unauthorized inquiry and sales calls. Callers requesting information to which they are not entitled should be politely denied. Keep your sales calls quick and know which companies and reps the office works with. If a person is physician shopping, and we have physician shoppers, they call to see information about the provider, about the office. They might want to know the physician's background. Be polite and answer questions respectfully. Your patients who have complaints, find out the source of their problem and present options to the caller for the resolution. Treat your callers in the same way you wish to be treated. The complaint may seem small to you, but it's paramount to the patient. And your good customer service remedies many complaints. So try to handle them with tender love and care. Callers with difficulty communicating. If your callers are not primarily English speakers, they may be difficult to understand. So use your listening skills and ask questions to be sure you understand. With your emergency calls, you want to make sure that you have good judgment from the person answering the calls. Know what constitutes a real emergency and how to handle it. This is where you want emergency phone call guidelines in place. Never hang up on emergency until help arrives. Your urgent calls require prompt attention, but not life-threatening. Your policies and procedures manuals should dictate what to do. Make sure your emergency calls can be transferred to the physician if possible. You should have a written plan of action in case the physician is not available to handle calls, and develop typical questions to ask the caller to determine the nature of the emergency. Your screening guidelines, you might have one person who is designated to screen calls. Again, you want to have written telephone protocol to dictate how to handle these. Obtaining information, you want to know what is the duration of the symptoms, what are the remedies that you have tried at home, and what are the specifics about the symptoms. Some types of outgoing calls on page 151. Most are responses to incoming calls. So you want to plan your outgoing calls in advance. Do it during a time of the morning or time of day where you have downtime. You don't want to be trying to make calls in the middle of patients checking in and checking out. Organizing your calls will increase the efficiency of how you get your calls done. Voicemail. Voicemail is used a lot. So there's a round-the-clock method to receive patient messages. So they might have voicemail being answered by a staff member. You might set up for all of your calls to go to an answering service. Make sure your voicemails are answered promptly. If you do use an answering service, provide the answering service operator with the information of when your office is closed. Also, when it's open, when the staff is able to check on messages. Make sure you, as the staff member, check in with the answering service every morning and every evening. You might also have a service that allows automatic call routing and call forwarding. If that is the case, when you leave your office, you can have it go to another number so that there is no message left on a machine. A live person can answer it. Caller ID and call blocking. Caller ID allows us to see who's calling before we pick up, and caller ID blocking blocks calls from unknown numbers. Your fax machines, they allow us to send and receive copies of documents over telephone lines. You can even receive them right into your email, set up an email address that they come right into. Make sure you protect the confidentiality by using cover sheets. Your cell phones, those are actually considered a luxury item. Headsets over on the page 153. They help to keep hands free while you're talking on the phone so you can write or check something on the computer. They're pretty lightweight and they're made for mobility. Your long distance and special services. This is an efficient way to get information quickly. So directory assistants can provide numbers. Your internet searches are a free way to obtain numbers, although be very careful because they usually direct you, and then they say, and for an additional fee, we'll give you this, this, and this. I tried that before class tonight. I ended up just dialing 411 because I couldn't get the information on the internet, just to get a phone number. Consider different time zones before placing calls. Your international service, this is international direct distance dialing. Your international code would be 0011, then the country code, the city code, the local telephone number, and the pound sign. If you do conference calls on 153 and 154, conference calls connect numerous points for a conference, very similar to what we're doing right now. Each person can hear or talk to all the others who are participating. You set up a normal long distance operator through conference call services. You schedule a call by relaying pertinent information about time, date, and individuals included. Your operator assisted calls and services, they include, person to person, billing to a third party, collect calls, requests for time and charges, and so on. Number and placement of telephones. Well, know how to use a multi-line phone. They're showing you a pretty huge multi-line phone right there. And I'll tell you, it takes quite a bit to learn it, but you can get it down. Place the phones where they're accessible but private, and courtesy phone for patients to use upon request. Using a telephone directory. Well, I don't know about you, but I send mine right through to the recycle box. because I don't use them anymore. I just use the internet or I dial 411. Basically, all the numbers I know I have written down or they're in my phone, which is right into personal phone directory. Include all the numbers that you call frequently. Your emergency numbers might be typed on a colored card or flagged with a colored tab. Actually, they're on an index card on the side of my refrigerator, so that anyone who needs them, they're right there. Identifying your community resources. Make sure you keep a list of community resources that might be of assistance to your patients. And most often, your city or town that you're in, the very front of the book or the very back of the telephone book, there's a list of community resources. You should be able to pull it out and have it right at your fingertips. And I think even in some phone books, there's like the middle section of the telephone book that lists them all. You might even go to the town clerk's office or Department of Health and Human Services, and they might be able to give you a list of telephone directory for resources. So you just need to find out where you can get them. So recordings that offer health information can also be played while patients are waiting on hold. Certain messages about special events can be announced, and phone directories again can offer listings of health information. So what are some of the legal and ethical issues? Make sure that you take care that no one overhears sensitive information while they're on the phone. You do not want to place or receive personal phone calls during work hours unless absolutely necessary. Your telephone and message records may be brought into court as evidence, so be careful. And make sure all of your messages are complete and legible. What do I mean by complete and legible, Diane?
Making sure you put all the information there and not your shorthand abbreviation so that you only understand.
Right. Right. Exactly. Any questions, ladies? No
If
questions?
we say no, are you going to go into chapter 10?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are easy chapters. I mean, scheduling appointments, chapter 10. Do you all need to take a quick break?
I need to take a 1-minute break.
Okay, go ahead.
Doreen, I have a couple of questions. Did we lose her? Doreen, you there?
It looks like she's frozen.
I think we lost her. We should have never left. Hello? Well, I think we lost her.
Yep.
I had some questions to ask her too while we were waiting about those tests that we were taking, because I'm still waiting for her to get the results from 1 and 2, because I haven't really had a chance to catch up with my medical terminology class like Liz, and this one kicking my butt. So
And now we're doing 4 chapters.
Yeah, how we're gonna do the test, because I did 1, 2, and 3 this weekend. I got a score for 3, but not for 1 and 2 because they need to get fixed, and I was wondering if she had a chance to do it or what.
She fixed one of mine at the beginning of class today.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
And she usually fixes them on the weekend is when she has the time to do that.
Yeah.
Do you think she's going to come back? Or?
I don't know. There she comes. No.
No, I just see Academy, but I don't see anything else. Oh, she might be back.
There she is.
Yeah, I needed a quick break too. Okay, so scheduling appointments. You want to read the scenario for me, Diane?
Ramona West is a medical assistant in charge of scheduling appointments for Dr. Charlotte Brown. Ramona is an extremely organized person who thinks quickly and creatively. One of her professional goals is to ensure that the office remains on schedule throughout the day and that the patient's waiting time is kept to an absolute minimum. She is fortunate that Dr. Brown is a cooperative and time-oriented, and they work well to reach this common goal. I'm not sure what her name is. Ramona usually arrives at work at least 15 minutes early to begin her preparations for the day. She reviews the electronic medical records for each patient to make sure test results from the previous visits are available to the physician and that the medical record is complete. She pays special attention to the patients who arrive in the office as she completes her daily tasks. Remembering the importance of providing patients with good customer service, Ramona greets each patient by name and carries on a brief but cordial conversation. Patients appreciate that she goes the extra mile to remember something about them, and that this promotes excellent patient relations. Ramona leaves a little time in the morning and afternoon for emergency appointments. The office uses an automatic call routing system to contact patients and confirm appointments in advance, which increases her show rate. Her friendly, caring attitude makes her a favorite among the patients, and Dr. Brown is pleased with the relationship building skills Ramona has developed.
Okay.
I was going to say, she left us.
I could hear every word. All right. What is a no-show?
Someone who doesn't
no show.
Someone who doesn't
They don't
call
call.
and cancel.
They don't call, and they don't show. That's a no-show.
They
what
charge them
if a
for the
person,
visit.
what?
Do they charge them for the visit, Doreen?
Sometimes, if it's in their policies and procedures.
They let the
Okay,
patients
so,
know ahead of time?
yep, that's right up front when you call in, when you come in as a new patient, you're given the policies and procedures of the office, and if in it is a missed appointment fee, then that's what you are given. All right, what is in your mind? What do you think is a rescheduled appointment, Diane?
Sometimes you might reschedule your appointment when you can't make the appointment that you have, so you call ahead and try to reschedule it, or the doctor has something come up and they need to reschedule your appointment because he
Yes.
won't be available at that time.
Yes. Do you think a no-show and a canceled are the same thing?
No, if you called and cancel, it's not the same as a no-show.
Correct. Good. Okay. So, all right. So using established priorities for appointment scheduling. So the patient needs. So with the patient needs, you have effective scheduling, and what this does is it allows the physician to spend adequate time with the patients. So there's 4 factors to scheduling, and the first thing is the patient needs. So we want to consider the socioeconomic status of the area that we're serving when we determine our office hours. So a busy metropolitan area might be totally different than a rural agricultural community. Or if we have a lot of patients that are young or middle-aged or retirement. Or are we in an industrial area versus a residential area? What type of patients are we seeing? Are they a specific age or gender? Okay? So definitely we want to keep in mind patients' needs, physician preferences and habits, your facilities that are available, and any duration of the office visits. So obviously an OBGYN is specific to women's health care. So in our patient needs, we're going to balance between the patient's needs and the physician's preferences and what's available within the practice. So when does the doctor want to be scheduling patients? All day, morning, afternoon? When do they want their lunch? When are they going to make their phone calls, examine and dictate their reports, attend meetings, answer mail, other responsibilities, that type of stuff. And then what facilities are available? So if you only have one practice, you obviously only have one facility available that you're scheduling. But if you have 2 practices that you are scheduling for, you need to know the hours for those practices. So when you're scheduling, you might actually have your office hours or scheduler up and open when you're talking to the patient so that you can be toggling between the calendars to determine when you can get them in there. Okay? All right. So the duration of the office visits. You, as the scheduler, must know how long various office visits and procedures take. So if you go in for an exam for your first visit, the first visit might actually be an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours. Hopefully, when you call to schedule a new patient appointment for a physician's office, they tell you, yes, your first visit in our office will be an hour, so please bring the paperwork and your payment method and your date book so that we can schedule your next visit. Make sure you know office policies and procedures for procedure times. And then what is the physician's reimbursement from the insurance company? Some of it might be based on time requirements for the procedure or the visit. You just need to know what they're coming in for. So there's two common methods of scheduling appointments. You have computerized scheduling and you have appointment book scheduling. So if you look at page 161, you'll see that there's a method there of appointment book pages. And you'll see that it's not necessarily that the pages are color-coded as much as the columns are color-coded, okay? It might even be that each day of the week is a different color. It just depends on if they're still using an appointment book and what does it look like. You can also, if any of you use Microsoft Outlook and you go in Microsoft Outlook, you can see within Microsoft Outlook, you can see a day, a calendar, a weekly calendar, a monthly calendar. All of the different programs have different types of schedulers to be set up. All right, so with your computer scheduling, it can be as simple or as sophisticated. They actually can keep track of future appointments. You can do printouts of schedules to help your staff and physicians stay on schedule. And usually more than one person can access the schedule so everyone can be informed. Self-scheduling, there's actually self-scheduling now. It's been around for a while, but I'm seeing it more and more show up where you can go online to the facility and schedule your appointment. What this does is it reduces call volume to the office, and it's pretty much available to the patient 24/7. You can also send an email reminder the day before an appointment and request confirmation. And you can also, your phoned-in appointments can still be offered. So, advanced preparation. Blocking out time when a physician is not available to see patients, that's a good thing. Note a reason for time blocked off. Most of your electronic scheduling systems use a template where you can block time slots automatically, usually your lunch hours or the doctor's break. What is the legality of the appointment book? What do you think is the legality of the appointment book, Jackie?
It has to be accurate and it has to be maintained and make sure that it's got the correct information for the doctor as well as the staff and the patients.
Right. It can also be brought into a court of law, okay? Because if, let's say, a workers' comp or a PI case, if you're only scheduling in a paper book, it is a way of workers' comp or personal injury companies to want to know when did the patient schedule, did they keep track of their schedule? Because when you're doing a paper book, a paper schedule, you really shouldn't be erasing anybody out of it. So how do you fill in that slot if someone cancels? Very tricky and messy. Makes a mess. All right. Types of appointment scheduling. There's different types so that you can meet the needs of the facility, the providers, and the patients. Some offices actually combine methods to make the right mix of activity during the day and to ensure that, you know, your day is going to run smoothly. So you need to be very proficient at managing appointments. So let's talk about open office hours. Well, open office hours can get pretty tricky. This is usually where a facility has open hours where patients are told to return in a couple weeks for a follow-up, or the patients cannot come in during intermittent times and seen in the order of their arrival. That basically what this does is it eliminates appointments and prevents from running behind schedule. This is most commonly used at labs, your imaging facilities, and urgent care clinics and emergency departments. The disadvantages to having this is that you can also have crowding and long waits, waves of busy times and waves of slow times, so you might have potential of overburdening your staff. Then we have scheduled appointments. Your scheduled appointments allow for practitioners to see more patients with less pressure. This requires a person who is good at multitasking and being very efficient. So it's critical for that person to understand how long each procedure requires and time for a pre-visit paperwork. So when you call for an appointment with your primary care provider or another physician, that person on the other end should know, number one, how long it takes the doctor to be with you for that type of procedure or the reason you're coming in. And number two, if you have paperwork, what paperwork needs to be done and how long it's going to take you. So not only when you're scheduling patients are you knowing about the procedures and the time allotted or involved, but you are also making sure you are knowing your patients. Okay, that is another critical point to scheduling, knowing your patients. So if you know that Mary has 3 kids and she never leaves them home, she always brings them to her appointment with her, you're not going to schedule Mary and her 3 rowdy children at a busy time where you have 6 elderly patients coming in. Okay? You're going to schedule Mary with the 3 rowdy children during a slower time where she might be able to be the only one coming in for a while. And then if she's leaving, you probably have a couple in the waiting room ready to go in. That kind of thing. Get to know your patients, usually what they come in for. And this is really important in their specialty practices because if it's a chiropractic office, then you really get to know your patients because you know what they're being treated for, you know how often they're coming in, you know what time of day they like to come in, morning or afternoon, and you kind of group your patients by how how quickly the doctor is with them, how do they want to get in and get out, are they a talker, do they like to visit. Okay, do you all understand what I'm talking about? Okay. So flexible office hours. Because many families have 2 working parents, many of your providers are using extended day and flexible office hours. So you might find that practices are open really early one morning of the week and staying late one night of the week, just to be able to get those patients coming in before work or getting out of work at a later time. So being flexible is advantageous to not only the physician, but the patients and the staff as well. Some have evening and weekend hours, which actually can increase the size of the practice just because of the convenience that it offers. Wave scheduling. Wave scheduling on page 164. This is basically an attempt to create short-term flexibility within each hour. This where you assume time is needed for all patients, that it will average out over the day. And it usually does. Your modified wave scheduling, tell me about modified wave scheduling, Liz, please.
The wave schedule can be modified in several ways. For example, one method is to have 2 patients scheduled to come in at 10 a.m. and a third at 10:30. This hourly cycle is repeated throughout the day. In another version, patients are scheduled to arrive at given intervals during the first half of the hour, and none are scheduled to arrive during the second half of the hour.
Yep. So between your modified wave scheduling and your double booking, you're going to see that this is a lot of what happens in a lot of practices. Okay? You might not think that it is like that, but it's usually the wave scheduling, the double booking, or the next one that's coming up is the grouping procedures, where they will group all the same kind of procedures together, just so that they know, this chunk of the morning we're doing nothing but this. So depending on how you're scheduling, you might color code things. It just depends. There's also advanced booking. This is really often where you make your appointments month in advance. So the doctor says, I'll see you next year. So guess what? You advance book it. Do it now, get it over with. Some considerations when scheduling appointments, you might want to be able to explain to the patient some things that they might need to know for their appointment. You might want to discuss their benefits with them. You might need to identify some critical information that's required for scheduling the patient prior to admission or procedure. You might also want to think about failed appointments. What are most of the reasons why patients don't make their appointments? So all of these appointments, guess what? There should be office policies and protocols for handling all types of appointments. You want to look at time patterns. Special problems arise daily, so some time should be open daily for a physician to deal with minor emergencies. And if they don't do that, they basically let the patients know, we had an emergency situation, come in, we'll get you in as soon as possible. Or the doctor's running 45 minutes behind, would you like to wait or reschedule? These scheduled slots reduce the disruption during the day. Again, it's going to depend where you end up working. So if at all possible, block out 15 minutes each morning and afternoon for a break for the physician to be able to return phone calls, verify prescription calls, answer questions. Your patient wait time. Your patient wait time should be minimized because it adds to anxiety, stress, and frustration. They should not go to the exam room. They should not go to the exam room unless they're not going to sit there and wait forever. Okay, don't put them in there and expect them to wait another 45 minutes. If they've been waiting more than 15 minutes, explain the delay, and again, as I mentioned earlier, offer to reschedule. Telephone scheduling. Walk me through telephone scheduling, Jackie. What should I do for telephone scheduling?
A pleasant manner for expressing a willingness to help or are just as important as the telephone as when you're meeting the person face to face. This is especially true when making appointments because the telephone contact may be the patient's first impression of the facility.
Keep going.
Oh, Often the manner in which the booking is made makes more of an impact than the convenience of the appointment time. Be it especially considerate, and if the time requested for an appointment must be refused. Briefly explain why the time is not available and offer a substitute date and time. Comply with the patient's desires as much as possible, and do not show annoyance if the patient does not understand the scheduling process. Most people, however, understand that the need for the well-maintained office and are willing to cooperate. Many offices offer the patients a choice when scheduling the appointment and let the patients decide whether the option is best for him or her. For the example below is a dialogue that you could use.
Okay, so, Mr. Smith, Dr. Stern is available for you on Tuesday or Wednesday. Which day is better for you? Would you like morning or afternoon? Always offer choices, okay? Always repeat the date and time of the appointment at the end of the call. Make sure the patient has written it down. Make sure you write it legibly on a piece of paper, or make sure you put it in the computer right away. When you're scheduling appointments for new patients, okay, new patients always require time and attention to detail, so be tactful and courteous. It's very important. Request the preliminary information so that you know how much time to allot. Offer the patient the first available appointment, giving them a choice again of dates and times. Offer directions or physical address to the office. Provide parking information if needed. Give them options for first payment so that you can discuss that. Give them a repeat appointment, or make sure you repeat the appointment date and time, and thank the patient for calling. Some offices might actually email or mail the patient an information package. If the patient is a referral, you might need to call the referring physician office for any additional information. Make sure you print and give referral information to the attending physician before the patient arrives, and make sure you send a thank you note to whoever refers the patient to the office. When you're confirming appointments, most offices will call the day before. You can eliminate last-minute cancellations. Email and automatic dialers can also be used to set reminders. You might need to conduct pre-authorization or pre-cert to determine patient eligibility for certain procedures. Just make sure. Scheduling for your established patients. Most of your return appointments are arranged from the patient leaving the office. All of your patients should be stopping at the front desk to check in with you and schedule. Any ordered tests can be discussed and scheduled at that time. Also, again, offer the patients 2 choices and a time. If you're scheduling patients by telephone, find a suitable time in the schedule, and you only need to know when the patient must return. You shouldn't need to give them directions or parking information, and you want to recheck the information with the patient if it's been a while since their last visit. So, Jackie, I noticed you haven't been in 6 months. Is your phone number the same? Your address the same? You still use, the pharmacy at, your whatever. Make sure you check it. When you're scheduling for any other types of appointments, whether it's a surgery performed by the physician, hospital rounds, outside appointments and meetings, possibly house calls, again, provide the information, date and time, physician will be there, directions, whatever you need. Think ahead. Scheduling appointments or admissions or treatment in other facilities. You want to provide the scheduler with the patient's name, their address, their phone number, all of that pertinent information. You want to send over the admitting diagnosis. You want to tell the patient they're going to have to bring a picture ID and their insurance card. When you're scheduling a surgery, make sure you call the facility where the procedure will take place as soon as it is planned. Also, provide them with the necessary information. And you might even need to provide insurance information and have phone numbers available. Inpatient procedures, very similar to the outpatient stuff. Make sure you are providing the department with the particular information that is needed. Any MRIs, ultrasounds, x-rays, that type of stuff. This is where that patient education comes in. Let the patient know what they're supposed to have. What do they need to do? You know, if there's a pamphlet you can give them telling them what to do to prepare, do that, or a handwritten note. Some patients might require appointments for inpatient and outpatient stuff. They might just be told to show up and we'll fit you in. Just be careful. Know what the department or the facility you're sending them to, what they need. If your physician makes house calls or visits patients, block out that time in his appointment schedule so you're not putting patients in there. If you have late patients, what do you do with late patients? What do you think, Liz?
If they're regularly late, you can schedule them at the end of the day so that they don't affect all the other patients.
Yes. Yes, if you know that they're habitually late, plan on scheduling them in the future at the end of the day. Just say, you know what, Henry, I see that we always schedule your appointment for 4:30, but you don't get here till 5:15. Can we just schedule you for 5:15 from now on? Would that work better for you? Rescheduling your canceled appointments. You know, there are unexpected conflicts sometimes, so you just really need to reschedule patients. Remember to, they say to remove the appointment from your schedule, but there's actually a way, there's actually a way now in the software where when you cancel or cancel an appointment, it just removes it from the schedule. It doesn't actually delete it from the appointment. So you can pull up a report to show canceled appointments. Emergency calls, these are calls that go through a screening process, prioritizing so that emergencies can see the physician first. Screening is very important and it requires experience and tact. Your emergencies can be emotional, so be careful, be as calm as possible. Your physician referrals on page 171. Most offices will honor requests from referring physicians who ask that a patient be seen the same day. We try to do the best we can, but we can't always get them in. Patients without appointments. The physician must agree to a policy for patients without appointments. Is he going to take walk-ins or not? And you as the medical assistant must follow through with that. So if a patient is requiring immediate attention, they should be accommodated somehow. If immediate care is not needed, then a brief visit with the physician and a scheduled appointment for later on can solve the problem. How do you handle failed appointments? Diane?
Why do patients fail to keep appointments? Some are simply forgetful. Once this tendency is detected in a patient, form the habit of telephone or emailing a reminder the day before the appointment. Automated call routing offers a patient the option of canceling an appointment and can be programmed to keep calling until the patient responds and confirms or cancels the appointment.
Yep, very good. What about a no-show policy, Jackie?
That's all in the policy that the office has, and they will tell you whether charge the visit to their insurance, or call them up ahead of time and let them know that they have, and if they still don't show, then see about, like you said, putting it for a later date, like the last time slot, in case they don't show or something like that.
Yep. So first time, the no-show, the patient, it gets put on their record or ledger card. Second no-show, warn the patient. Third time, consider dropping the patient, actually. And there are practices out there who, after your third no-show, they actually send you a letter that says, in the future, we'll give you one more chance. If you miss another appointment, you will be dropped from our practice. I mean, that's the short part of it, but they do that. Automated call routing, as mentioned earlier, automated call reminders can contact patients scheduled for appointments, and the patients might actually be asked to press a key to confirm their appointment. You see on page 173 all different types of examples of appointment cards. Confirmation calls indicate in the records the patient's preferred phone number for reminders. There are privacy guidelines and standards that require care when leaving messages for reminders. And a patient can sign a release form so that the office staff may contact someone else to leave messages or reminders. You can also email or mail reminders. Many of the computer programs today allow us to do that, and I have a couple of them that I'm working with. When the patient cancels, keep a list of patients with advance appointments who would come in sooner if an appointment opens up due to a cancellation, especially if the practice is that busy. When a physician is delayed, call the patient and suggest they come later if there is advance notice. If they've arrived, let them know there's an emergency and explain, do you want to stay or do you want to reschedule? If the physician is called away for an emergency, the exact same thing. Does the patient want to wait or reschedule? Try to call and get them rescheduled as soon as possible. The same scenario with the physician being ill or out of town. There might be a physician that comes in and fills in for the physician, but if that is not the case, make sure all patients are called as soon as possible and rescheduled. And you would not say the physician is ill or the physician is out of town, just that we had a conflict with today's schedule. We're calling you to reschedule your appointment. What day would work best for you? The patient does not need to know that the doctor is ill or that the doctor is out of town. Just that we're rescheduling our appointments today. This is when what we're looking at. What day works better for you? Now, obviously, if the doctor wants you to say, "Oh yes, I'm out of town," but not many want you to do that. Some other types of appointments might be another physician that drops by, a pharmaceutical rep over on page 174, or you might have a salesperson that stops in. All of these people should end up with an appointment at some way or another, okay? When you are planning for your next day, before leaving, look over the next day's appointments. Review the medical records for the scheduled patients. If there are tests that were scheduled at the last visit, check for the reports in their medical record. Make sure you prepare for specific procedures that are scheduled. If you're the person in charge of scheduling, you have a huge impact on the overall efficiency of the office. Basically, you are the hub. If you are scheduling, if you are front desk, you end up being the hub of that office. You control the flow, okay? And that can be huge. It can make a difference of getting out at 5:30 at night or 8 o'clock at night, just by how you schedule. And so this is where knowing your provider's preferences and habits, knowing the procedures that are done, knowing the patient, if you can master all of that and cleanly schedule all of your appointments, you will be an awesome asset. It just can go so smoothly when you can totally and efficiently schedule patients. So patient education. If there are information booklets about the office, policies and procedures, these should be given to the patients. If your facility offers internet-based scheduling, the patients can be taught how to use that system. Make sure that you choose a simple, user-friendly program and have a special phone number for patients to call with questions about the program. Legal and ethical issues. An appointment schedule can be subpoenaed to court as a legal record. That's one of the reasons why. Be sure all of the handwriting is legible and information collected is consistent. Note all no-shows in the appointment book and medical record, and keep all appointment schedules equal to statute of limitations for your state. Any questions, ladies? No? Okay, we got through some good chapters. And I know you didn't read the last two, but that's fine. I think you get the gist of it. All right, so 4 assignments right now. Let me know still when you get your study guides. In the meantime, go on to Evolve, do the chapter quizzes, do any of the medical terminology practice. That doesn't hurt. And what else was there? And then take the exam for each chapter, 7 through 10. For next week, 11 and 12. 11 is patient reception and processing, and 12 is office environment and daily operations. So that should keep you busy for the week, ladies.
I have a question, Doreen.
Yes.
For the exam for chapter 1 and 2, I'm still waiting to have the results from them. I took 3 and I passed that, but I had questions on chapter 1 and 2 that I've been waiting for to be able to put it in my the chart that you give us to be able to put what our exam scores are. So I was waiting. Sure.
Okay. So you had asked me to reset them and you retook them.
Mm-hmm.
And did you need me to go through them and correct them?
Yes, there was a couple. I sent you the specific ones that needed to get fixed on both of them.
Okay, because I didn't get them.
I sent it to Amy, and then she sent it to you, and then you emailed me back.
Okay. Was that earlier this week?
Yeah, I took it over the weekend. I took the 3 chapters over the weekend. And it was chapter 1 and 2 I had questions, and I think chapter 3 I got like an 86 or something.
Yep. 87. Okay. Yeah, I usually don't do those until the weekend, but when we get off the class, I'll take care of those and send you an email.
Okay. And Amy, Doreen, that's what I was going to ask you. On chapter 1, was it just those 10 questions? Because when you went down to the bottom, it says next question set, and then you push continue, but it ended it. So was it only just those 10 questions, or did they have more?
No, that was it.
Oh, okay. I wondered that because it said next set of questions or a question set. So I didn't know if I was
Nope.
I didn't get it or what.
No, that was it.
Okay.
Okay. So, homework. Practice and play stuff on Evolve. And chapter exams for 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I want you to read 11 and 12 for next week. Other than that, we'll call it a night.
All right. Thank you.
All right? Have a great week, everyone.
You too.
Thanks, you too.
Okay, and Jimmy and Ange get call. Okay, and okay. Good night.